So it appears that more violence is planned in the capital of the United States over the next few days. If you don't know what's going on January 20th, the inauguration of the next president of the United States is scheduled to take place. Joe Biden will be officially sworn in as the president of the United States on this day, and as we all know, just a few days ago, Trump supporters committed one of the most shocking, examples of political discord that we've ever seen in the United States, after raiding the Capitol building and creating such a scene that now Americans, I think, are generally just in shock. I mean, on both sides. I think people on the left are also in shock, but even people on the right are just stunned about what happened, I think, too, because no one, I don't think, really saw this kind of thing coming, but it appears that more is planned, and that is an unfortunate thing to talk about and report on, but the FBI, federal law enforcement agents, and even localized law enforcement agents are bracing for an unprecedented threat over the next few days, not only leading up to the inauguration, but on the day of the inauguration of the next president. So, officials from the Department of Homeland Security are planning to sharpen the response and plans for Inauguration Day to make sure that security is not only bolstered for the planned event, but also for the days leading up to it and even after it for major areas, I guess, in Washington, D.C. The Department of Defense is aware of, quote, further possible threats posed by would-be terrorists in the days up to and including Inauguration Day. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has asked for additional security measures with 10 days to go before Inauguration Day and is asking people to avoid going to the city at all costs. On social media, there has been rumors going around that people are discussing potential planned protests once again leading up to the entire inauguration. There has been rumblings of armed protests being talked about in all 50 states at Capitol buildings and other major government buildings, which has led to federal and state partners and law enforcement having conversations about what the country can do to address the threat and keep people safe during this time of presidential transition and the entire situation that's been going on. The FBI has been making significant strides in arresting those responsible for the events that transpired in the Capitol building just a few days ago. It's come out that people stole things such as senators' laptops and iPads, people looted podiums from the building, it was largely vandalized, and on top of that, some of the quote-unquote protesters even were captured inside of the building with things such as zip ties, which were presumably on these people so that they could capture hostages. IEDs were found planted around the campus, even including at the DNC and RNC headquarters for each national convention for the political parties in our country. And with everything that happened at the Capitol building, there's been a lot of fear of what can potentially be happening at the Capitol building and in the surrounding area in the next few days. As a matter of fact, the Washington Monument is going to be closed for several days, all the way up through the 24th of January due to this, to prevent people from going to it and basically having these protests and situations getting out of hand, and to protect innocent people from being harmed as well. According to news outlets, not only will layers of security be used to protect the inauguration events, but also standoff distancing and tactical teams being placed on standby will also be there to prevent the biggest concerns from being reality. They're also planning for things such as an active shooting scenario, vehicle rammings, and the deliberate targeting of critical infrastructure for the United States government. The D.C. mayor also asked the Trump administration for an emergency declaration for the Washington, D.C. area and also called on the Department of Homeland Security to extend their preparations to help defend the area in case any sort of terror situation could unfold. Key intelligence is suggesting that further violence is likely during the inaugural period, and she was quoted as saying, quote, "I will tell you that given the events of the last week that the inauguration preparation has to be different than any other inauguration." And the mayor has asked the Department of Homeland Security to extend this National Special Security Event period from January 11th to the 24th, which is an extension of the plan from January 19th to the 21st, which is basically just surrounding the inauguration day. The mayor also asked for the Department of Homeland Security to cooperate with the Department of Defense, Congress, and the Supreme Court to establish what they call a security perimeter with federal forces around the federal property, which hypothetically would free up the local Metropolitan Police Department to focus on normal city duties instead of having to be tasked with the potential for unrest with the entire situation going on. And as I said before, the National Park Service announced on Monday that they will be closing the Washington Monument for more than 2 weeks, which also includes the inauguration, to basically prevent potential violence from occurring there, also against potentially innocent and unarmed people. And they also said that, quote, they may institute temporary closures of public access to roadways, parking areas, and restrooms within the National Mall and memorial parks if conditions warrant to protect public safety and park resources. Twitter has been tracking the latest plans for armed protests and also announced this when they permanently suspended Donald Trump's account on Friday. The CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, was quoted as saying, quote, "We fully expect that the violence could actually get worse before it gets better." And a former DHS official told CNN that from the perspective of extremists, the purpose of an attack like last week's was not to destroy the Capitol, but, quote, "to show that a relatively small number of people can actually take over the system, to be a rallying cry for join us or you're now the enemy." Security requests and situations have not been limited to the capital of the United States, though. As a matter of fact, outside of Washington, D.C., local authorities have had to grapple with threats and increased security needs and incidents as well. As a matter of fact, on Saturday afternoon, an unlawful assembly was declared in San Diego, California, after protesters had clashed and threw objects at police officers. And according to tweets from the San Diego Police Department, these protesters threw rocks, bottles, and eggs at officers shortly after they were asked to disperse. Tweets also suggested that pepper spray was used as weapons from the crowd against police officers. And the unlawful assembly was declared about an hour and a half after the pro-Trump and counter-protesters had gathered near the beaches of San Diego. On the same day as the siege in Washington, D.C., the Texas State Capitol building and grounds had been closed to the public, quote, "out of an abundance of caution." This is all according to a statement from the Texas Department of Public Safety. And protesters had taken to the Capitol grounds after an Operation Occupy the Capitol Texas event had been created on Facebook. And the United States military is also starting to get involved. As a matter of fact, Washington State Democratic Governor Jay Inslee announced on Friday that he was mobilizing up to 750 members of the National Guard to provide security for the beginning of the state's legislative session, which starts on Monday, saying that, quote, "The actions that we saw in both Washington, D.C. and in Olympia in Washington State earlier this week were completely unacceptable and will not be repeated in our state again." This followed after protesters occupied the states of... Wow, I messed that up. This followed after protesters occupied the steps of the state capitol on Wednesday, and dozens of people broke through the outer grounds of the governor's mansion before being peacefully turned back by state troopers. Quote, "In light of the most recent insurrection activity, the state cannot tolerate any actions that could result in harm, mayhem, or interruption of function of democratic institutions," said by Inslee on Friday evening. And in addition to National Guardsmen, the governor says that a, quote, "large number of Washington State Patrol troopers will be on hand to help restore order." Also in New Jersey, state Homeland Security officers are tracking planned events for both January 17th and January 20th, as well as, quote, "several one-off protests that they are still determining the credibility for." And some online rhetoric has apparently called for protests at all 50 capitals plus D.C., and the FBI in particular has continued to, I guess, assess these threats as they're at the state level. So while D.C. is bracing for the large-scale protests and potential violence over the next few days, it's apparent that the United States itself is facing an unprecedented threat with this political mayhem, and requests for up to 10,000, potentially 13,000 National Guard units to be moved into Washington, D.C. to help keep order throughout the next few weeks have been made, meaning that, well, it's being taken seriously, okay? This is a situation that I think the country needs to take seriously. We already saw what happens when you don't take stuff like this seriously. Apparently, this is something that had been planned for a long time. This whole insurrection, these riots, these quote-unquote protests, whatever you want to call them. I had not heard that they were being planned. I knew that Donald Trump was calling on people to protest, but I did not know that the plan was to storm the Capitol or anything crazy like that. But I mean, now that we've seen this situation unfold and the country is plunging into like political chaos over this entire thing, it's only a matter of time before something bad happens, and something needs to be done to try and mitigate the threat that the country is facing right now. So with that being said though, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus, make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members, your support helps my channel tremendously, and until my next video guys, this is Optimus watching this all unfold, and signing out.